What's up, everybody? Clint Fauché here, and
I'm Albert Chavez.
And this is Front Porch Chronicles. I think we're on episode 10.
We're on episode 10. We're excited to be back.
Second week of the new year. I'm full. Are you?
I'm full. I feel great right now. We just had a great lunch meeting the great Tusa.
The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Roberto Tusa Alencar. It's five time.
It's cool meeting more and more of your jiu-jitsu guys. They're freaking cool. They're super relaxed. I don't know if anybody has ever done jiu-jitsu, who's interested, but a lot of those guys, they came from, just a different environment, and everyone's just super relaxed and chill.
Well, when you know you can beat up anybody in the room, it kind of makes it a little bit more chill. But I was glad that you got to kind of meet him and have been meeting more and more of my friends. It's always funny because people have a perception of jiu-jitsu guys or fighters or whatever, that they are these like...
I got a question.
Yeah.
How did you get into jiu-jitsu? You've been out here now for a couple years, but you started before that, didn't you?
Man. Okay. So look, it's a funny story. This is how I got started. I was 35 years old. I'm not going to go into how long ago that was because I don't want y'all to be calling me old and whatnot. But I was working for a medical equipment company, and I had a patient pass away in front of me, literally within like feet of. And it really, around that time, I had watched the movie Bucket List, if you've ever seen it. And I said, what are some things that I really want to try before I die? And that sounds pretty grim, but it is what it is. So I said, I'd always been into UFC, had always been into MMA. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go sign up to train. And so I ended up, my roommate at the time, Chris Sherry, shout out, we got with another guy and ended up meeting Matt Hobson, started training with him, doing some jiu-jitsu with him. And my second MMA fight, I lost to a jiu-jitsu guy, and that led me to GracieBarra. And so I went and signed up with GracieBarra in Birmingham, Alabama.
You had Christian Eccles on here a while ago. Was he training then?
He did. Yeah. We were both trained with Professor Khalifa Oliveira, which is also a highly decorated judo black belt as well. His kids now are big time wrestlers. And so they're in the state of Alabama, some state championships, and just kind of dominating. So that's kind of how I got. Next thing is we talked about today about getting you on the mat. So next we got to get you, and we got to get my neck. I'm crippled Tim still dealing with this neck. Hopefully the doctors will kind of release me and let me get back to jiu-jitsu. This car wreck has been a game changer for me, mentally, physically, and emotionally. But, it is what it is. And this too we shall overcome.
Oh, I know you've been doing a hell of a job with it, no doubt. And still, I think what I've noticed too within the last couple of years of us getting to know each other, it's allowed you to obviously mentally shift and physically shift where your goals are at, but at least like it's allowed you to dive into your mental and your spiritual realm a little bit more. And you've been taught, you told me before this how you wanted to dive more into shadow work too. So I think all that has led you down this path too. So it's pretty cool to witness.
Thank you. And it's crazy because thinking back now, I originally used jiu-jitsu as a coping mechanism. Or a distraction. I'll say a distraction because, as you know, with trauma and stuff like that, when you don't want to deal or you're not ready to deal or whatever, you find different ways. I call them coping mechanisms, whether it's women for me or training or overtraining or all of those things. So the car wreck really forced me physically and mentally to sit with myself. And when you sit with yourself is when you either one or two ways. We talked about this yesterday. It's kind of like there's only one or two ways you can go. You can go dark and you can do the devil's work, or you can go the opposite way and heal and you know, do good and do God's work and kind of shift. And so thankfully, I chose to go with the good side, and God continues to bless me, and I'm just glad to try to help out as many people that I can.
Well, I mean, like I said, you've done so much for us. I feel like for me personally, just in my development as like really, really diving into like the meat and bones of it all too, like so much. It's hard to like, sometimes it feels like we're doing this all alone, you know, and we kind of are, right? In a sense, everyone has to do their own individual work, and it can be draining sometimes. It can be difficult, and it's also very fun. I find it fascinating because then you get to learn about yourself a little bit more, see what really goes on, and really just learn about yourself and like see like who's the type of person Clinton wants to be, who's the type of person Albert wants to be, and like really just show for itself so that you can be there for your kids, your family, your loved ones, you know.
Yeah, it's you are alone at the end of the day, but who you align with. And this is one of the things that I had to learn to make a shift. And I still struggle with this in letting go of people and relationships and situationships and different things that aren't the best for me. And I'm really learning. Somebody said something, you know, people are like seasons. Some are here to stay, some are here to go, and things cycle. You'll have your core of people that will be your forever people. And then you have people and situations and things that are like seasons. They come and they go. And you have to be comfortable, confident, and love yourself enough to understand and know when it's time to move on.
So for a lot of young people, like, how do you know when it is? Like, what do you normally do just to figure out, like, because you've been through a lot. You've been through a lot. You've been through so many different seasons, to different chapters, and like, what have you, like, from when you're younger, like early 20s, like late teens,
yeah,
to like now that you have like kids and stuff like that, what have you felt like is the best process for yourself? Or
I still struggle. I'm going to be, you know, I keep it 100 and I'm raw and authentic. You know, it's funny. People always laugh because you get what you get with me. You get the mullet. Shout out to the haters on YouTube too. The luxuriousness. You get the mullet and you get real authentic me. And so with that, I still struggle with this. I do. I have always, I think because of my traumas and because of me going through the things that I do or have been through, I have a problem with trying to heal and help too many people or overly giving them of myself to people to try to help. And this is where I'm learning to value myself, my time and my energy more, to learn to cut that tie. So with that, I'll say do what you feel in your heart and not your mind, because your mind switches things. We know, like, I look at things now and it's like, we talk about all the time, and like things that I see of people's behaviors and patterns and different things. And I'll tell you, and like, you'll be like, I don't really know. But then it always comes to fruition. You're like, bro, how did you even know that? Because when you come from that type of savagery, I look at and read everything, even with conversations. Like a lot of times I know you laugh because I can see you like, why does this dude just keep talking? And it's my way of filling somebody out, because sometimes people will let out who they are without trying to let out who they are. And it kind of, you can shut that door that needs to be shut. So I still struggle with it. But I've learned to go with my heart, and I still, I'm in a situation now where it's heavily on me, and I'm trying to unearth some things and figure out what exactly I need to do for the best situation for me. So,
long story short, it sounds like you just kind of just feel out what feels good to you. I feel like more and more, at least for myself, like I'm learning to trust my gut. Which
I tell you that all the time.
I know. It's just, as a young person, you want to try it all out, and sometimes you got to learn the hard way.
And even with me, man, sometimes I feel I know what's in my gut. But it's kind of like I did a post yesterday. And the guy on there basically said, sometimes our fingers hurt because we're trying to hold open a door God is trying to close. And I think a lot of times we try to trick ourselves into believing that if I love somebody more, if I treat them better, if I do what they say they want, if I try harder, that they will give us what it is ultimately that we need. And that's the love or the attention or whatever, to be heard, to feel safe. And the fact of the matter is, no matter how much you love somebody, no matter how, all of those things, at the end of the day, it's up to that person to make their choice. And at the end of the day, you have to make your choice based off of the facts rather than what we feel like a person could be. And that's a hard thing to do, because I see the evil in people, but I overly see the good in people. And that's where it's a very slippery slope, because when you see good in somebody, you want to raise that good up in them, and some people aren't ready. And it took me 43 years. So I judge not unless ye be judged. But at the end of the day, you live and you learn.
Yeah, it's I feel like oftentimes we really, really think that we know a lot more of what other people are doing, where they're going. I was actually thinking about this a lot actually this week, where TikTok is everyone's game now. So like, but someone was like, it's funny how a lot of times people will know what they want for other people, like how they should expect to do it. Kind of what you're saying, like they want to judge other people's things, but then how is it that they don't even know themselves, or they don't want to like go in the ringer and feel like, oh, I don't really want to go deeper down this because it feels a little bit dark, or it
feels uncomfortable.
It feels uncomfortable, right? I remember where I heard it from. I was listening to Huberman and Goggins. David Goggins was talking about how like he does it every day, or else the day hasn't started yet unless he dives into his darkest parts, and he's had a rough childhood, sharing about that. But everyone wants to tell you how you should be doing something, but they don't even know X, Y, and Z about themselves. So what's really going on there? What are they hiding from? It's interesting.
I think that's where people don't trust themselves, because they don't do the work.
I mean, how can you if you don't do the work, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, you wouldn't be able to trust yourself if you said you're going to start something. But
people admit, that's where I go back to, your heart over your mind. Because just what we're talking about, think about what I just said a couple of minutes ago. Think about what we're talking about now. Your mind can make you believe things that you know in your heart aren't true.
So I have a question too. I've been pondering this a lot, and I go back and forth with it too. Like, how do you know the difference between trusting your gut versus a trigger that you have, like that you're trying to protect yourself? You know how they can relate, where it's like you feel like your gut is talking, but what if you're triggered? You don't really know.
Your gut comes from peace.
Your gut comes from peace. Okay.
You'll know from a peaceful situation as opposed to a trigger. Again, it goes back to it. You have to unwind the yarn, the nest. What they call it, the squirrel's nest, whatever it's called. You have to unwind all of that and be cognizant of what's going on. I mean, all the time, things trigger me, like the most simplistic things. And it's funny because we have very open dialogue and very open. I tell people all the time, I'm blessed that you're not only my business partner, but my best friend, because we can have these conversations, and these conversations at the end of the day are what keep us sane. And things trigger me all the time. So I've learned not to make decisions off of triggers. And you'll feel, when you say trigger, a trigger makes you feel anxiety, makes you feel overwhelmed. It makes you feel all of these things that are not peace. And one of the things that I had to learn is, as well as I do, I'm a very emotional, very, very, very emotional person. And I used to make very emotional decisions. Now what I've learned, so that I don't make decisions based off of triggers, or that I don't make decisions off of angers, which anger is a trigger response. What I've learned is I take a step back and I say, hey, I need time to process. And some people will get that and some people won't. Some people want to deal with the situation right then, but you have to understand and learn. It goes back to like what we said. You have to take each person where they are at that time. And what I personally need can't intrude or impede on somebody else, because at that point, I'm not getting their authentic response, rather than me getting something from me triggering them by saying, hey, we got to deal with this right now. I used to do that a lot in relationships. Panic responses. Again, like we talked about my last divorce. Man, I showed up and on my knees, like I was like a sad love song. The only thing missing from a good country song was me groveling with my dog. That was the only thing that was missing. But again, I wasn't realistic in where that person was, nor was I realistic or in tune with what reality was. I was still caught up in that mindset of an unhealed person trying to navigate through the world, that I didn't even really know who, what, when, where I was. So I didn't know who, what, when, where, why that person was, or the world. So let me ask you, what do you feel like? Do you feel like, now that we're having this conversation, do you feel like for you kind of see what that is? And do you see where you kind of have made a wrong decision because you misconstrued what, like we just said, kind of like how I did, where like I didn't know what was going on. But like, do you feel like you've made a decision based off of a trigger response, but you thought it was your gut, or vice versa?
Yeah, I just didn't really know how to listen to open that like door inside, because I feel like there was a lot of second guessing before I really wanted to explore more about myself and learn like the darkest part. So I did a little experiment with myself almost 2 years ago, where when I was first learning like how to navigate and like learn what emotions they are. And I like to share this with people because it's people are like, how do you do an experiment on yourself? You know, like, isn't that a little weird? I'm like, yeah.
A little bit. It's kind of like, you know, they say it's not weird if you talk to yourself, only if you answer.
Well, I do that too. So
Me too.
People can attest to that. But it's this is where I appreciate like psychology a little bit more. Because it's like the engineering of the mind a little bit, right? And so for those that you don't know, I studied engineering in college.
He's the smart one.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of both worlds. You know, it's like it's the human design of like what makes us tick at certain things, like what makes us happy, like all that stuff is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
The more I dive into it, and so I did a little experiment to like learn what emotions I had, almost like a tool belt. You know, I was like, if I don't know how to use this, what's the point of having it? And everyone has emotions, right?
Everybody.
So why don't you learn how to use it? So that means you're gonna have to press some buttons. You have to piss some people off, and that's my worst emotion is pissing people off. And like people like, why would you want to do that? You know, it's really mean. I was like, well, the experiment was if I don't learn how to like control my anger and like understand it, I'm never going to use it, which is what I did already. So my thought process was, why don't you try to use it and learn from it so that way you can wield it and use it in the correct way. Because if you use an axe like a screwdriver, you're going to be fucking it up, right? Like how are you supposed to know how to use the tool if you don't use it, right? And so that's going to include using it in the wrong way too. So I always feared getting mad, which is not a shocker. And people have told me, Albert, sometimes I just want to see you get mad. Like, you just piss off. And the only time
I've seen you mad, but you smile even when you're mad. It's kind of weird. You're like the complete you're like the complete opposite of Putan. He always has this stoic look. You always have the smile. Like, even when you're like steaming, like I could see, and you got like this grin, and I'm like,
well, the grin changes. I don't know if you noticed. I get very competitive.
I do.
Because I'm like, all right, let's go, motherfucker.
Yeah,
I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
I've noticed.
That's the only time I really knew how to like use my anger. So for like, it's probably like an 8-week span about 2 summers ago. I don't know if you recognize this or not at the time because I was like practicing, but I was like keeping receipts of like what everyone said. Like mentally, you know?
always do that anyway, just so that you know.
I know I do, but like now I just learned to let it go a little bit more, like quicker, and not when I was like being very intentional.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, let's just see what happens, and it was really great at first. I was like, this is awesome. I have like this edge.
I got receipts.
You know, like I'm keeping tabs, so I was like keeping receipts on like everything, like every small detail. I was like, okay, I got you. Let's hear it. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And like the first month was super motivated, great on everything, like a little bit more of that fire, you know?
Yeah.
But then the last couple, I realized I was just getting mad at every small thing just because I was like chasing that high kind of, you know? You just like, you feel great, like the little bit of spark because you competed. You know how like it's great to like get that edge because it feels different, right?
It is, yeah.
And I think a lot of times too, people like myself have like a negative reaction towards getting mad, getting angry, like to the nth degree. I agree with, but I think there's a reason why we have it, right? It's a tool. And so after this little experiment, I realized, okay, I was being dramatic in using it a lot of the times, but it really allowed me to be more comfortable with it. Granted, it still was uncomfortable for me to be, to get like a little bit pissed and like get mad to like get competitive, but it was a fun little thought experiment that I did with myself, and I realized, okay, like you probably shouldn't do this if you're trying to build relationships.
I don't think I'll tell you this. I don't think you overused it, like what you just said. I think that anything that you learn, you should overuse it. It's like walking. Like, you know what I mean? If you don't continually try to learn to walk as a baby, you're never going to learn to walk.
Yeah.
So I think you.
Oh, I don't regret it at all. It was the funnest experiment ever. It was cool because I think a lot of times like people don't use all their emotions, and so they don't. How are you expected to, like you just said, if you don't learn how to walk, how are you going to walk? So if you don't use your tool belt of emotions, I think that's why people get triggered by like the wave of toxic masculinity that was going around. I really do not like that word. It sounds so negative. I get where it comes from because a lot of times people assume a certain thing about someone and they don't want to know or ask questions. And granted, there are some people out there too that just don't know what to do with their emotions, and so they just haven't learned it. That's probably the good side of me. Like I just assume people are not trying to hurt you, but I'm aware that there are bad people. But you have to like learn how to use it, or else like how are you expected to be in a really high stress environment to stay calm or like learn how to do something? Or even if you're happy, you're gonna have to learn how to like navigate that because everyone's chasing this happiness high. Like how are you supposed to be happy 24/7? Like that's not even feasible too. It's like, what do you like? It's with the good and the negative emotions. Like you're gonna have to use everything.
Yeah, and for me, I think I had every emotion, but I wore my emotions on my sleeves, as they say. So I've been the same way forever. I've always, if I didn't like you, you were gonna know I didn't like you. If I liked you, you knew I liked so. I had to learn kind of the similar way as I'm learning to not dial down the emotion, but take in the full emotion so that I can know how to file it. Like, should this be something that puts me over the top? Should this be something that I should just be upset about or not be upset about? Yada, yada, yada. So, no, I get it and commend you on, especially at your age. I always tell you how grown up you are. I sound like somebody's grandpappy.
I mean, you got 5 right now.
I mean, so. I got 5. Hopefully, don't none of them make me no grandpappy. I ain't trying to be no grandpappy yet. Nah, I'm good on that. So.
I mean, so I guess you're still learning about your shadow side, like how to like integrate it with your lifestyle. You got that book, the Shadow Work Journal.
Shout out TikTok.
It's cool, right?
I got 2 dime. I'm gonna share them. I'll share them in the link whenever we get it put together. I got 2 really good shadow books.
What's the other one?
I got it from TikTok. It's like Shadow Work something. You know, I'm from Alabama. We don't remember all that.
You're just there. So like, what did you? Is there a specific thing that you learned about with yourself in terms of like figuring out what type of people you want to have in your life? Like, so in Jiu Jitsu, it's a solo sport, but you still have your team to work around.
Yeah.
Like, who do you, after like looking through like inside yourself, what makes a good teammate to you? And like, have you learned of like how to bring people in, how to like shuffle and like go around? Like how do you navigate that?
That's a good question. Yes, shadow work has definitely improved my thought process. First thing is bringing people in. This is, I'm very cautious with people, but I also have the broken bird syndrome, which is something that I struggle with.
What is the broken bird syndrome?
I call it the broken bird. Like whenever you date somebody, you're talking to somebody that is broken. Like they're like, and it's kind of a crazy thing because I hate to say broken because we're all pieces in work, but somebody who is at their lowest of low, somebody who doesn't see the light, somebody who doesn't know their value, somebody who, like all of the things that I felt for all of those years, I still have this innate thing that I have a soft spot in my heart for those people and trying to help them, which is a gift and a curse because, you help some people and, they get to where they learn a little bit and they acknowledge and then they discard you, or they devalue you when you were the one that was there for them throughout the whole trial and tribulation. But that's life. And so with that, I've learned to be more cautious with who I let in, but I'm learning to let go of things that are not meant for me. And I'm very open in relationships, business, pretty much. I mean, you know me, I'm a pretty open book. So I'm very open about when I feel like I'm being unheard, when I feel like unsafe. And by unsafe, we make it this negative connotation like I'm unsafe, like it's like, oh God, it's fight or flight. It's not that, but like you can feel unsafe, like not at peace. So I've learned to, or I'm learning to let go of the wounded birds and that I can't help everybody, number one. And number two, the ones that I do help that aren't grateful or devalue my who I am, I'm learning to let that situation go and be at peace. So that's for me. Let me ask you, for you, you're a younger guy, younger fella. How do you look at, and this is where we kind of differentiate because I'm more cautious. And as you've been with me, I see that you've become a little more cautious. How do you feel like with people, how do you divulge in your brain if someone is someone that you want to align with, someone that you want to create a alignment with, and or whether it be business, whether it be dating, whether it be whatever? What have you noticed that now going through your journey, you're like, okay, these are things that I look for?
I mean, the biggest thing is, you touched on it a little bit, is just for me to feel like I can be open with someone is like, how honest can you be with them? Like, is it more just like playfulness, like playful banter, or is it more of like, okay, if you walk on eggshells around this person? And that's where like the interesting part about me is like I'm very serious, like for the most part, but I love to just like let go and just have fun, and like whether it's just go hoop or go for a run, like that's how I have fun, is like that. But I'm also like very much like like making dad jokes, like just being really like stupid and silly and stuff like that too, which is not what a lot of people notice. So the big thing for me is just like, how honest can I be? If you're asking for like my opinion, what does that actually look like to you? Because most of the time people don't really want your opinion, which is fine. But if you're going to ask, you have to like understand if it's just what you want to hear, then you need to learn how to communicate that or just not expect it. So that's a huge thing for myself, is just figuring out like, okay, most of the time people don't really want the honest opinion. So maybe have fun with it in a different way to make it so that you want to align with them. Because most of the time too, I'm realizing is like the hobbies that we're around kind of at least put you in a similar mind frame. So for example, like you do Jiu Jitsu, those people tend to be in a similar mindset in terms of want to stick with something that's very difficult physically. So you do that. People may want to do like an art class. So for me, it's doing this run club weekly. And so those people, sure, we might be from different backgrounds, but at least we have some common entity. And then we can break bread at the end and like have like an appetizer at like the bar or whatever, and just like chit chat about like what else is going on and like how else are you doing it. So for me, it's just like, what's your mindset in moving yourself forward, and how does that fit in with like your day-to-day life? Because if you're just going to check out after work, that's fine. It's just difficult because with our job we always have to be checked in. So there's different types of people that I've noticed I tend to cling on to based off of like how they shape their life and how they do their daily practices with the things that they like to do. So,
and let me ask you this: how do you, when you know someone isn't aligned with, or, and this is difficult because like we've talked about this before, there's going to be some people throughout your life that as you shift and as you learn who you authentically are and as you grow as a person, how do you let those people go? Do you cut them completely off? Do you just like step back and kind of let things happen naturally? Or what is it? Have you found that you're more comfortable with one thing rather than the other?
I mean, for me, it's funny because in terms of like attachment styles, I'm like an avoidant attachment. So I will just avoid that thing in general, I've noticed, because part of it's like the desire to make things like really as close to perfect, like the perfectionist standpoint of like wanting everything to be like its best form.
Yeah.
And so my default then is the opposite of that. If it's not, is to just like completely avoid it. The reason why I'm bringing that in is because with relationships, sometimes like I will not, or a lot of the times, like if it's something that's very difficult, and I've coined this term to just call it the elephant in the room for myself, to address it as soon as possible, is for me with relationships that I realize are not suiting me anymore, I will just kind of just take a step back and switch gears on like how I want to interact with that individual or group of people. Because if, for example, like I don't see the long-term benefit of us like either professionally or like in terms of values like being the same trajectory, what's the point of them being in your life? And that's difficult for me because I love to
see the good in people.
Yeah. And I assume people are going to change over time, but I've learned through like past relationships, past friendships, that's not always the case. And so you have to I just shift the way I approach with certain people now, and how
more often than not, people don't change.
Yeah. And I've realized that too. I was talking to my mom, I was like, I've changed a lot. And she asked me, she's like, have you really? I was like looking, I was like, I guess my personality hasn't really changed. I have the same like personality, but it's the mindset that's the difference, I think. And so when you say people don't really change, I get that, where it's like, I've been this personality out the womb. My parents said, like, I've been very stoic, very observative,
very loving. You're very loving, caring, very good energy. And that's one of the first things I told you, like, protect it, because there are dark entities out there that see that as a meal. And so I think you changed. I don't think the essence of you is still there. All of the loving, caring, all of the good qualities, all of those things are there. I think now the biggest difference to me is you have the voice that you didn't have before. Correct. I think before you would hold on to things and you would kind of sweep things under the rug, and you would kind of all of these things. And I could see like you almost grimacing back in the day in pain, because I could see it weighing so heavy on you because you didn't know how to process those things. So I think that's the one thing for me. And I mean, I'm not
right. And so again, yes, like we all have to change or develop no matter what. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just like learning how to express that. You made a really good point. And because I mean, I always knew how to do it. It's just, how do you physically do it when something feels awkward, intimidating, uncomfortable, right? So it's probably the biggest thing, is just learning. I have to speak my voice, and we all have one, and learning where to share it. That's the biggest thing too, you know?
That's the big.
Yeah.
That's hard for me because, I'm a little bit unfiltered.
It's where you came from too, right?
Yeah. I mean, you never guess what's going on with me. It's there's no gray area. It's either a win or a loss with me.
No, it's good to hear your perspective on everything. I feel like every time you walk in the room though, you definitely have this like great presence too that everyone knows you're gonna like. At the office, everyone's like, "Oh, hey, where's Clinton? Where's Hoshi at?" Like they know like what the energy you type of bring too, and it's like, what are we like? How do you bring it? Like how are you gonna step up to the plate? And daily, it seems like it's really easy for you to do that because like what's at stake here, like because of what you came from, and you shared last week, like the tough situation that you've been in the past, and I know that's a motivation for myself is like. I don't want to go back to the way I was before. Like now that I've unlocked this Pandora's box, like that doesn't seem appetizing anymore.
No. Well, and for me, it's crazy because people, I've always had this defense mechanism to where I act douchebaggery or I put on a different persona to kind of weed out people. But like, I'm such a loving, caring, like teddy bear. It's like I always want to try to be a light, even when I don't feel like I am a light. I try to be like that for others because I want to be, when I die, somebody asked me this the other day, and it really hit kind of deep. They said, "What do you want to be remembered for when you die?" And I want to be remembered for helping people change their lives. And to me, I look at it, and, we talked about this last week about learning how to take wins. And for me, it's such a massive win because, you come from the abuse that I came from, sexual, mental, physical abuse. My oldest daughter, before Mallory was born, dead. I've seen people die. My grandmother, who I was very close with, passed away. And, all of the chaos, all of the trauma, all of these things, there's 1,000 reasons that I should not be a good person. There's 1,000 reasons why I shouldn't care about other people. There's 1,000 reasons why I should be selfish. And at the end of the day, I feel like I just want to do God's work. And with that, I just want to be a light to people that don't have that light or that spark, or they're in that place that I was, where I felt like, I didn't want to be alive anymore because I've had, I'm just being truly authentic. I have had, I tried to commit suicide. I've never really talked about it. When I was like 19 years old, 20 years old, my brother found me. I tried to hang myself. So I've been, at a very dark place where I didn't care about life and I didn't want to live anymore. So now every day I try to I wake up in the morning and I think to myself each day, how can I help change somebody else's life? No matter how bad I feel, no matter how stressed I am, no matter how discombobulated I am, I try to take each day and live by that mantra. And that's what I want to be remembered for. And it's funny, a lot of people remember a lot of things about me because there's been some ratchetness, but I hope at the end of the day, that's something that people, know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. No matter what you've been through, no matter what you've done, God loves you, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. And it's going to be hard. I'm not going to tell you it's going to be easy. There's a lot of work that has to be done for you to be at peace. But at the end of the day, life is good. I'm happy. Do I have stress? Do I have stressors? I do, but I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy, to have my kids. I'm happy to be aligned with the people that I'm aligned with. And so life's good. So,
I mean, you're already changing people's lives, man. It's a lot farther than we think most of the time too, which is funny because it's like every time you share something on Instagram or something like that, every time you share this story, it just like, it produces more light than you think. So
yeah, I mean, like I said, we talked about before. I struggle with feeling like I am worthy, but I learn. I take each day, and I try to understand that I am a light to people, and that makes me feel good in my heart, and it makes that little inner child of mine that was getting beaten and abused, it makes that kid feel happy, and it makes me happy to know that inner child is happy. So
yeah, well, thank you for opening up. I know it's it can be very difficult to do that a lot of the times, but yeah, dude, it's just cool. You don't even realize, like, no matter where anyone's story is at, and I see you. Thank you for being very vulnerable with that and just sharing like a little bit more of like what you kind of went through and how you've had to like adapt the small little things in your life to make sure you're there for your kids, make sure you're there for yourself, for your family, and for myself too. You've been such a great mentor, leader, friend, father figure, just for me to be able to like learn and grow and adapt, and just share like this stuff too. Like every time I hear a story, I feel like I learn something new from you, just very small and minor now as we share a little bit more. But
yeah, it's funny because I don't overly divulge a lot of these things, man. I've held on to for so long because I was scared. I had somebody reach out in my DMs a few days back, and she said, her brother was sexually assaulted as a kid, and it was one of his coaches, and the coach had come to the mom and said, hey, I can take him on these trips and whatever. And she like kind of went into detail with how it went down and how he struggles, and that she was going to share with him kind of our podcast to kind of help him to understand that there is light. And I think you discount and discredit yourself as well, because you allow me to have, I tell people all the time in relationships or whatever, they say, what is it that you want? Man, I don't need money. I just want peace. And you allow me that. So, I'm forever grateful for you for giving me that peace and just being the light and the energy that you are. I think you discount, double check that sometimes. And so, with that, this weekend, let's jump off the emotional train, because, Apex is going down this weekend. I'm super stoked. I had a pleasure of going to the Apex. I went and watched Hoffa fight there. It's crazy. It's like super small. And I don't think, let me ask you a question. Do you realize how small it is when you watch it on TV?
I didn't. I assume that's where they do the Ultimate Fighter, right?
Yeah.
So I just imagine it's just the cage and like maybe 3 rows.
No, there's a little bit more.
Is it more?
It's a little bit more than that, but it's not very much room. I know when we went for Hoffa's last fight, there was kind of a little bit of arguing and bickering because it is, you know, fans or groups of people from the people that you're fighting against. And so it becomes almost, it's kind of weirdly scary because everybody's just packed into this and you're taking people that are fighting, and whether you're respectful or whether you're like, oh, the best person in the world when it comes to your style as a fighter. Whenever it's a fight, bro, like people, like energy levels ramp up, testosterone, like all of these things. So people are kind of bickering back and forth. And you have people that are sitting like literally right there. Like at the bigger events, there's crowd noise and there's so many different things. But this place is so confined that it's like...
Well, you know, you might see the fighters' friends or something like that too.
That's what happened. That's what happened when we went. And so it was kind of some bickering, kind of back and forth and stuff that was going on in there. So it was kind of crazy, but it was super cool. Super nice facility. The food was A1. They had crumble cookies. You know, I'm on my little weight loss thing. I'm down like 20 pounds.
Yeah, you look good.
I'm trying. I always lose it in my face though first. I wish I could lose it in the abs first so I can, you know, get my abs right. But it's still kind of cold right now, so my fat boy season can ride out a little bit longer. But
yeah, it's gonna be a good fight this weekend. Got Johnny Walker and Alkali, I'm going to butcher it, Malkalib, or something like that. Yeah.
I can never say their names right.
Yeah, it's going to be nice.
That sounded super sus, me saying them like I was classifying, but the Russians, Dagestani, I always butchered the names, and so I don't even try. So I try to just give them nicknames or go by their nicknames. But that fight with him and Johnny Walker is going to be a banger. I think we talked about last week, you know, the last time we had the controversy with the illegal knee, and, you know, they asked Johnny Walker, where are you at? As they usually do when people get concussed or whatever. And he said, in the desert, which Abu Dhabi is clearly in the desert. So I don't know what the doctor was smoking on. He's probably the one that USADA needs to do the drug test on, but, you know, we'll see.
Who you got?
I like Johnny.
Yeah. He's lengthy.
He's super lengthy. It's hard to prepare for him because he's so all over the place with his movement and his striking and whatever. You just really don't know where anything is coming from because I showed you a video. His energy is all over the place. His fighting style definitely matches his energy, and you know, I kind of dig his hair too. So I'm gonna go with him winning that one. Then next up, the co-main event we'll have on the show next week. I talked to him actually yesterday. He's weight cutting this week. We'll have him on the show next week. Matthias, he was on an absolute like rampage of dubs, and he lost his last one. He got caught with a shot. This is his first fight back. I like him. I think he is going to win the fight. I think his work ethic, it's a rematch too. But I like his energy.
You said you talked to him, right? Is he obviously he's in focus mode?
He's in focus mode. The weight cut, you know, he's in a good place weight wise. He is one of those guys that, and we'll bring this up when he was on the show. The first time I met him was in Orlando. And he was fighting on the same card as Hoff was fighting on. And I remember when I met him and we were walking away and RDA said, that guy will be a champion. And if he already didn't have my respect there because he's super nice, one of the most friendly guys I've met, if he didn't already have my respect, he definitely had my respect when, you know, one of the GOATs in RDA says, hey, this guy is going to be a champion. You instantly are like, okay. And so I kind of dove deeper into his training. You know, he trains out there with Johnny and Day at the gym with them. And he's a heck of a fighter, a heck of a person, and his work ethic is impeccable. So his weight was pretty much on. He's like one of those guys. I equate him to you. He's always dialed in and knows exactly what's going on. So I'll take him in for the dub.
I'm excited to have him on too, and just get to know him a little bit more too.
Yeah, he's like I said, I'm curious to get to dive into a little bit more with him, and get to know him on a little bit more of a personal level when we have him on. So it's going to be epic.
It's epic because like all those guys, they've been training for so long too. Like it's so ingrained in their life, and the way that they just like carry themselves, it's just so relaxing to be. You just know that they just want to be there and enjoy your company too. It's you don't really find that anymore where people are visually just present, you know, and like want.
You
like,
do not. And I talked to. We're going to do a double episode actually next week because we're going to have Blake Builder. Shout out Blake Builder. We talked about it. I reached out to him and I just said, hey man, because a lot of the time these fighters, it's hard for them to depict who is authentically there for them as a person, as opposed to who is there for them because they're a fighter. And, you know, like I told him, I said, look, man, I think it's commendable that you fight. And I think that's awesome and all of that. But for me, that stuff, I don't want to say it doesn't matter because that's their job. And so it does matter to me whether whatever I can do to help support them. But bigger than that, you know, he's really been on a walk of faith with his belief in God and kind of readjusting his goals towards being more godly, going to church more, and all of those things. So we had a pretty in-depth conversation, and man, he is a lot like me in the sense of I think he's perfect for this podcast in the fact of he's had a lot of trauma. He's had a lot of trials and tribulations. And like I told him whenever we talked, I said, man, it's one of those things that, again, this guy had every reason why not to be a good person, and he's doing God's work. And so for me, you know, him being 10-1, 9-1, whatever is awesome. But for me, you get mad respect because you're doing the good work. And so I'm super, super stoked about having him on as well. We got some bangers, absolute bangers coming on.
Yeah, I'm excited. So stay tuned for all these next episodes. It's going to be fantastic.
I know over the next few weeks, it's going to be Liddy in the city, as I like to say. I'm really looking forward to them sharing their journeys with us as well as us with them, and kind of creating exactly what we intended from the beginning with this podcast, in putting out good into the universe and you know, really helping people be and do better with their lives. So I'm super stoked.
So be on the lookout for those 2 episodes coming up.
I know,
We're
right?
gonna be
got
excited.
Double episode. I might have to get me a new hoodie for the. I'm always looking for a reason to get a new hoodie or some new Jordans. So I might have to get me a whole new outfit just for the double episode. You know what I'm gonna bring out? I know what I'm gonna bring out. I'm gonna bring out the. I got my gold member. Jordan 1s. I think that's what I'm gonna bring out, the gold members, and stun on them a little bit. So
stay tuned, everyone. We're excited to have y'all, and I'm excited to see what outfit you got for that week. It's gonna be cool and epic. But yeah, thank you for listening, and we're gonna continue sharing our story with everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody. And as always, I say this every episode, if there's anything that we can do for you, anything at all, yes, we do real estate, but at the end of the day, it's not just about real estate. If we can help you with life, if we can help you with advice, if we can help you get with anybody mental health that you need, or any help that we can get you at all, please, please, please reach out to us. Doesn't matter the time, doesn't matter the time zone. We want to help people, and that is exactly what we mean. So please reach out to us if we can do anything for you. We love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. You don't know how much we truly appreciate it. And you have a great rest of your week.